And I just had this thought. It's not a great thought to have, but I feel like if Fantine had just sort of realized what she was going to have to do from the get-go, she probably could have gotten better money keeping her hair and teeth. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe not the teeth.
I finally
Watched.
I finally
Watched.
I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally
Watched.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And my name is Alain, and I have finally watched Les Misérables.
You know, I was going to say this is my favorite play musical, and I think you just fucking ruined it for me.
I thought you were going to just tell me, but then you watched Wicked, and now that's your favorite play musical.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I guess we're going to talk about Wicked a little bit at the end. Let's just do Wicked now. So, because I don't want to talk about it nearly as much as we talked about Emilia Perez. But what I would say about Wicked is I was shocked how much I liked it.
Yeah.
And I just realized at the end of it, I was just staring at it in like awe. And Defying Gravity is like maybe one of the best moments in movies in like forever. And I've seen the play, so it's not like the song's a revelation to me,
Right.
but it's just astounding. And I think the other thing is that is a very like hard skill to have is the ability to take a musical, which is like a kind of a different world. It's a different medium. The expectations from the audience are different. To transform that into a movie to where it's like still like honors the play, but like there's the one scene where the guy is singing, who plays like the prince or whatever, I forget his name, and
John Bailey.
there we go. So fucking just haunting in this movie, like, you know, almost turned me. But
Well, it's
he
so funny. One of the critics I read about a review of Wicked was like, oh, so Jonathan Bailey didn't even try to play straight in this.
but there's the one scene where he starts singing in the classroom about like, I don't know, not trying as hard or something or whatever.
Mhm.
And then they have like the people kind of in that like those rolling bookcase thing. And I was just
Yeah.
like, that's the thing that works in the play and the movie. Like they kind of brought it over. It was really great. I mean, Ariana Grande killed it. Cynthia Erivo killed it. Ariana's boyfriend was pretty good. So yeah,
SpongeBob.
I don't know if I knew that Jeff Goldblum was in this, but anytime you put Jeff Goldblum in a movie, and especially as it's kind of a surprise to me, I'm like, that's great. As the wizard,
I liked it. Some people said that Jeff Goldblum was the worst part of the movie because he just basically played Jeff Goldblum as the wizard.
I actually
But
thought
I think,
he was very toned down.
well, not only that, but I'm like, Jeff Goldblum's always plays, and you can't help him. Like, you can't help like him when he's in a movie. And I was like, he's kind of gross in this movie, right? Because you know
Yes.
everything. Like, I don't know. So I liked it. I didn't have a problem with it. So I saw this in theaters, and I wasn't gonna watch it. I actually had absolutely zero interest in it. I know, musical, right? Shocker. But the reviews came pouring in like best fucking movie, A+, 5 stars, yada yada yada. And I was like, well, goddamn, am I gonna watch this? Like, is it worth watching? And I was like, everyone says it is. So I went and watched it, and I was just like, not really a movie I would go for. But I really liked it. And I did not see the play. But I have to consider that you're very limited in a theatrical play. Like, Elphaba's probably on a fucking wire going, to and fro on the stage during Defying Gravity. And for them to translate it into some sort of like really epic flying around the Oz's castle scene and everything like that, and I heard that most of the sets are all practical. It is crazy. Like, in the beginning when she's singing about the wizard and her while she's like walking around the schoolyard.
Okay.
All practical. They built that school. They built all the interiors. They built the fountain. They planted the trees. I mean, I'm sure they were fake trees, but still, none of it was like blue screen and green screened in. And so in order to accomplish something and have the vision for that is amazing all on its own. And then the music for me, like I listened to the Wicked soundtrack before this, and obviously there's some songs that really stick out and some songs that I could care less about. But the visuals paired with all of the songs really keeps you, and it's a long movie and it's only part one, right? Like there's a whole nother like half of this. Basically, it feels like we're taking a year or two long hiatus between intermission, right? When you're at a play.
Yeah.
But there's a whole nother half of this movie. This movie, as long as it is, but it really keeps you invested from beginning to end. I think that's really cool. I really liked it. And you were saying that you just kind of stared in awe as this movie ended out. And that's kind of how I was with Les Mis. I kind of was just like whoa, like at the end of Les Mis, it's almost like a religious experience I had with Les Mis. I'm just
Because
like,
it's your people.
it's my people, vive la France. But that too, and you can tell. I mean, this is kind of an older movie, right? This is, can you believe Les Mis is like 13 years old now, right?
Right.
But you can tell where the CGI is. I mean, the ships in the beginning, and then how many people and the big sweeping, like wide shots of France and the barricades and everything are CG, or at least they're like practical, but then repeated in post, right? Like to make
Okay.
it seem like more people. But it does give still a very grandiose sort of feel, like you are viewing I don't know if you saw Napoleon earlier last year.
I have not.
It I feel like making France feel like a place you live in. They did a better job in Les Mis than they did Napoleon, and that only came out 12 years before Napoleon, right? So I don't know, everything just felt really big, and then you feel really close with the characters, even though I thought that all the singing would take me out of it. You you know what you need to know about every character in like the first minute of meeting these characters, right?
Yeah, which is why it works as a musical, because so this is like a huge book written by Victor Hugo, I guess what at this point it's like 160 years ago because the movie came out on the 150th anniversary. And then in the 80s it was turned into a play. I guess they had tried previously in France. And so my experience with this is I think I saw this in theaters when it was released. There was a whole big I forget what movie we were talking about the other day where they're like, oh, like the plot point of like them saying like, oh, this is, we did it this way. But them talking about Les Mis and how everything was sung live became such a huge like Oscar selling point for this
That's right.
movie.
Yeah.
And I think it really works. But so I saw this in theaters, probably because of that marketing a little bit. And then I went to New York in 2016.
New York City.
New York City. And it was like part of a spring break. And we decided to go see a bunch of plays. I'm pretty sure that we saw Wicked. And my remembrance of that is I had already seen it, and the girl next to my wife like basically shit herself. She smelled so bad, and Ashley
God.
could not stop talking about it, but she really liked the play.
In Les Mis?
No, in Wicked.
I was gonna say if she shit herself in Les Mis, it's like a 4D experience, like you're there.
So then we went to Les Mis, and I was blown away by it. And then that week, I had just like bought the CD for Hamilton like a few weeks before. I listened to one song and I was like, that's it. I just want to see it. I want to see it live for the first time, which is at that time a crazy thing to say. Could not get tickets, like was looking the entire week trying to figure out if there's a way I could try and get in, entered the like lottery or whatever. And then the last day walked by those TKTS people tickets, and they were like, you want to go see a show? And I was just like, we were literally flying out 7 hours after that. I was like, only if you can get me into Hamilton. They're like, well, let's check. And I got in.
Holy crap.
And so I got to see it with like the original cast. It was one of those like I spent ungodly sum of money to do it.
Yeah, but now it's like it's an awesome story, and it was totally worth it. I mean,
So that week we saw Wicked, Les Mis, and Hamilton,
nice.
all in that time period. And in retrospect, I think Les Mis was almost like those experiences, that in Hamilton, were kind of equal to me, because Les Mis, like, I had seen the movie, but I had like, it had been 4 years. I wasn't really big into the play, and then just really blown away by it. And then I think you told me this, that I forgot this, that when I came to visit you, like when my son was like 2 or 3, that I just put Les Mis on at your house just to see if he liked it.
Yep. Yeah.
And this movie has grown on me to the point now where, and I was watching it in front of my wife, just kind of, for note taking purposes or whatever. And I was finishing it tonight as I was making dinner. And then she's just standing behind me, and as the credits roll, she's like, "That's it. I'm watching that." Like, she's just like, I have to watch it now. She's
Well,
like,
when you played it in my house, I could give two shits. Like I couldn't give a shit about it. But you were like, "Oh, I don't want to hear the beginning song." You like fast forwarded it to like the middle, and I'm like, "Well, I don't want it. I don't want to like watch it there and be invested in it, because I want to start from the beginning." Um, I'll tell you what, I'm glad. On one hand, I'm glad we're ending in with Moulin Rouge, which is another musical about France. But somehow, I think Moulin Rouge is more depressing than Les Mis, which is saying something because Les Mis is definitely has like more depressing as it goes, like through the film. But the ending is at least like hopeful and cool, and then Moulin Rouge is just like sad all the way, like at the very end, sad. But yeah, no, I feel like I watched this and I had like a religious epiphany on it. I'm like, I just felt so many emotions. But Taylor was sobbing. Taylor's watching this with me. She's sobbing. She saw it when it came out initially, and she said, "I sobbed then, and I'm sobbing now." I didn't cry. It got me a few times. I know Anne Hathaway was supposed to make me cry. She did not. Uh, Epiphany, Ep- Eponine,
"Eponine,
Eponine,
Eponine."
Eponine made me tear up, and then of course at the very end, it made me tear up. But I never like started bawling my eyes out at any point. Um, it did get to a point where it got too sad, and I could care less what happened to um, Russell Crowe. That I was just like at the end when he kills himself, I was just like, good motherfucker.
I just like that he was such a man that rather than admit he was been wrong his whole life, he's like, "I'm just gonna fucking kill myself."
Yeah, which is so. Oh man, I got something to say about that.
And then
Oh, I know.
they use the canned sound for his death when he hits.
I had to watch that again because I was like, there's no way that they use like the cartoon
Yeah.
breaking bone thing. Like
They
they
just did the
wanted-
Wilhelm scream as he falls.
I thought they would. I mean, after that, and it's so funny because it's like, oh, he's landing in water. He'll probably live. He's- and he hits the side of it and I feel like they do that just to be like, hey, audience,
He's dead.
he's dead. There's no coming back for him.
Well, I think I read something that they had trouble with that scene and they had to reshoot it. So that might have led to why they had to do that.
The part where I thought it got too depressing for me was when they killed the little boy
Gavroche.
Gavroche, and then they ended up killing the entire rebellion army. I kind of went numb after that because I was just like, oh fuck, well, okay, you killed some of my favorite characters so far in this, but you let fucking Sacha Baron Cohen live, sure, okay.
Did you know that we saw Gavroche earlier in the movie?
Early in the movie, then
Yeah.
when the time skip happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a baby.
There's a small scene where they steal these guys' suitcases and then put a baby next to him and a different bag, and the guy carries them out. And that baby is Gavroche, and it's made more clear in the book. So that Gavroche is the child of Sacha Baron Cohen and Helena Bonham Carter, and they give him away.
Holy crap.
Yeah, apparently the book's pretty fucking depressing. So, not that this wasn't.
Well, I know some people Well, it's just kind of let's start at the beginning of this, right? I think we're done talking about Wicked, right? And we're kind of
It was really great,
it
guys. Yeah.
was really good, and this is like a good example, and Wicked, and this is a good example of like musicals translated to movies done right, you know. So I knew a lot of like the buzz around this movie when it came out. I never wanted to watch it because I wasn't into I didn't want to be depressed, quite honestly. And I know that like Anne Hathaway was a very depressing character, and that was true. That held true. So I just didn't want to feel like that. I just kind of avoided it. But I heard a lot of the people had problems with the way some of these actors sung. Russell Crowe being the main one. A lot of people hated Russell Crowe in this. And then some people had problems with Hugh Jackman singing because people felt like he took the emotion over hitting the right notes. But I
Yeah.
thought I would prefer that over perfect singing.
Yeah. I agree. And I agree that Russell Crowe seemed to be like the weakest because I think everyone else was actually like all the famous people pleasantly surprised that they could all sing very well.
The
Still liked Russell Crowe's. Even though
Yeah,
it was very limited, I liked it.
I have nothing to compare it to, right? Like I didn't watch the play and I don't know how the theatrical Javert sings. And I'm just assuming he probably sings like that because the music's probably the same. I don't know. I know that Hugh Jackman is musically and theatrically trained. I
Yeah.
know that Eddie Redmayne is musically theatrically trained.
Anne
Uh,
Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway. By the way, Redmayne was like a nobody back then, absolutely nobody. But this was like the start of his golden years. It was this Danish Girl theory. No, sorry, this Theory of Everything Danish Girl, and then he was starring the Fantastic Beast stuff. He just was like
Right.
rocket launched because of this. But then Eponine is the same actress
From the
that
West End play, yeah.
from the Western play, and then everyone in the Rebellion Army was pretty much from Broadway or the Western play. Like they were pulled right off of the stage onto this, and I'm guessing probably a lot of the background singers, like the women cleaning up the blood, the other people working in the factory of Anne Hathaway's factory were probably theatrically trained singers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes Russell Crowe. It's just a hard environment to make him look really good in.
But so starting from the beginning, some of his like his cadences when he sings are probably like one of my favorite parts of the movie. So when he's like 5 years for what you've done, the rest because you tried to run, like that, like cadence that builds on itself, and he does it throughout. Even though, like, yeah, once again, he's probably like the weakest part of it. He's still fine to me. You know, like I thought it was fine, and I think he hits the acting part of it, which in a musical like this, I think people underestimate how important that is. But all the acting underneath the singing is really great because you found the perfect people who could do both.
Mm, yeah,
Well, which is like cool because so the woman that plays Eponine is really great in this, and then the guy that plays I don't even in
George. Yeah,
Androrus. How do you say that French name?
it's probably like George. But the thing is that everyone doesn't have a French accent in this French movie.
Androrus.
Everyone has a fucking English or Cockney accent in this movie, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But I guess we'll just accept it.
But I thought that guy was amazing in this, and like
Yeah, but
obviously,
you never see him in anything. Yeah, I think he's mainly a theatrical.
and I think this was his a little bit, crossing over a little bit, yeah. But I don't recognize him from much else, and his name's Aaron Tveit. I don't know,
Yeah,
is the T
but he
Tveit?
he he is really good.
So
Um,
let's start with the opening because the opening this time when I saw it, it reminded me of that Phil Collins Tarzan meme where it's like, hey, it's just a scene about a prisoner getting put on parole. You don't have to go too crazy. And so then they have them lifting in a giant fucking ship, like as all the like rain and like the seawater is hitting them.
yeah,
So it's just epic, like an epic opening for the movie.
and I mean, handing it to Russell Crowe again. the lyric "Prisoner 24601," it's not like not, I was gonna say sexy to sing, but it doesn't like usually flow. But he makes it like good and
Well,
to
that's
say,
in in the play it works too. That's like a that is a famous 24601 is the thing is a number that I knew before even ever seeing the play or knowing what it was related to. So,
Really?
yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
was a thing. So I'm reading here that it was a number that was only mentioned in the book twice, and then they made it into like a bigger thing in the play.
Right, right. And like yeah, I'm just saying giving Russell Crowe for like credit for that. I'm sure like everyone who's done the play has also hit it very well too. But the opening song is Look Down, and it's like look down, you're here until you die. And it's like these people are hopeless, and it really hits home. The one of the saddest things about this movie is like that time period in the world where you're given 5 years for stealing a loaf of bread, and like your life is just over after that, because even when you get out you're a dangerous criminal and you can't get a job anywhere, and then oh, you have a child, so you're now not allowed to have a job because you're a whore.
Right.
And then oh, you guys are all poor, fucking sucks. Yeah, like the police aren't don't work for you, which I mean a lot of people are going to say the things I'm saying now are sort of still a reality for a lot of people, but it's to a different degree. Like life fucking sucked back then. If you like there were no pleasures to be had. You could barely get food. Now at least in
Right.
our country, like slightly better.
You
So
but even like Javert didn't even have it good. His commitment to the country and his commitment to the law and the code like severely handicapped him all the way through life. And then like when that's taken away from him at the end, he's like, "Well, better kill myself."
yeah, and what's great about this play, obviously, it's a book that was written forever ago. The play written what at this point 40 years ago. The themes are so universal, and so like after this, he goes to this priest who gives him a meal, and then he immediately tries to steal from him, and it's sort of this like recidivism element of like he wasn't an evil dude, but being in jail for 19 years has turned him into a guy who's like, oh, I'm going to steal from a priest after this, a guy who like helped me. And then the priest, he gets caught immediately, and the priest covers for him and is like, you forgot the rest of the silver. And there's this cool thing. He hands him those, the candelabras, and he keeps those with him. He never sells those. He sells everything else for his money, but he never sells those. He holds on to those. You can see him packing those up as he's like leaving with Cosette at the end.
Oh, nice.
So
I
he
didn't
never
notice
gets
that.
rid of those because of the meaning of them.
Yeah. And then he like turns to God, right? And it's so cool because he's basically our main character, even though the movie kind of like jumps to different characters. He's definitely the focus
Right.
of the movie. And he's so good,
Who
right?
am
And
I?
and it's I get the SNL Lobster Diner skit now. I get it.
I'm glad you sent it to me. It was very good. I had never seen it
Yeah.
before.
Anyways,
They
so
shouldn't have put it on the menu. I'm fucking eating the lobster.
I'm calling their bluff. Yeah, no, so the whole thing where he's like a good man, but he did a mistake, right? He made a mistake. He broke the law because he was trying to feed his sister's son. And Javert almost looked at him like, hey, and I think the turnaround for Javert is when he saw the little boy dead.
Yeah.
And he's like, this represents me. Like, this is the legacy I'm leaving behind. And I condemn Jean Valjean to be a bad guy, but he's done everything in his life to be good. And it's like, and I think I'm doing good, but then this is the result of my good is this dead little boy. I don't know. There's just something like really crappy about that. But I don't have any sympathy for Javert.
But our main character does.
But our main character does, and that's my point though. Sorry, I was getting a little off, but that's my point is that to have like a righteously good main character all the way through, and he's like spit on and shot at and stabbed, and like everything is taken away from him, but then he still holds true to the end. I thought that was really cool.
That shot where he tears up his papers and throws them in the air and you see them floating and you have the music and he's on like the top of like a mountain.
Jean Valjean is dead,
So
and
it,
he sings it in the cemetery. I thought it was pretty cool.
he cuts to 8 years later. He's in a different city. He's the mayor, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about like working your way up.
So this next song at the end of the day, I don't know if I already said this, but there is not a bad song. There's not even like a mid song in this entire play. Everything is great. Every time I hear a new one, I was like, oh shit, that's my favorite. Oh, I love this one. Oh, great. So at the end of the day with Anne Hathaway, and she gets this letter about the baby, and then all the other women are like, you're a whore and you won't even sleep with the foreman? Like, and immediately tattle on her. I don't know why they hate her so much.
It's insane that you're labeled as a whore if you have a child.
So I was just looking. There is obviously the book is probably long as shit. There is a mini series, like a British mini series that is 6 episodes long, and I was watching a trailer of it before we started. So it's got like Dominic West as Jean Valjean, um, David Oyelowo, I fucking just butchered his name right there, but as Javert, and then a bunch of other famous people. The Helena Bonham Carter role is done by Olivia Colman.
Excellent.
Anyway, but watching the trailer of that, it shows the parts of Fantine with the guy that leaves her and the baby.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So like I just think it's like obviously much more extended and probably something that I would be interested in watching if I can figure out how to. Or maybe I should just read the damn book. But I think we get a lot more of the backstory that's skipped in this. This was supposed to be like a 4-hour movie that they cut down to 2.5 hours, which I think makes sense. 4 hours is a little much. Like we
I mean,
get
it felt a little long for me about at the hour point, and it wasn't bad. It was just because they were fitting
a lot.
so much in that I was just like, surely we're like over 3 hours, and I look and it's like 49 minutes. I'm like, holy shit.
But what I also think is cool is, and I noticed this and then I read, so the movie does a great job of showing you why Jean Valjean misses Fontaine being thrown out because he sees Javert. And apparently Tom Hooper, who directed this, was like, I was so confused why he didn't help her when I saw the play that he's like, I needed to make a point of, why he didn't stop this.
Yeah, I think it was so good because the way that this is formulated is that they're like mortal enemies, right? And
By the way, apparently it's pronounced David Oyelowo.
okay.
So sorry about that earlier.
Okay.
That actually, now that I look at it, the thing is, and this happens with like Danish, like Scandinavian names too. I look at it and I'm like, oh fuck, and I get so scared of it. And then if I just looked at it and broke it down, it's Oyelowo. Anyway, continue.
The movie establishes that Jean and Javert are going to be mortal enemies, right? And then he runs away, breaks parole, changes his name. It does such a good job of like having us feel like his world is rocked when he sees him in his office.
Yep.
That yeah, it makes it extremely clear that, and you even see him kind of turn around and be like, oh, what's the commotion going on over there? Also, I have the guy who wants me dead in my office wanting to meet me, right?
Yep.
And I go by an alias, and I don't want to be found out. So it's like sad, but I mean, I would say that he makes up for, I guess you could say too little too late on his part, but he finally finds her.
Right. I love the part where a guy gets something dropped on him. It's a cart, and he lifts it off, and you remember from the opening when he tells him to go pick up the flag because he's
Yeah.
got this super strength, and just Javert's like, could it be? You know, could this be the guy? Like a memory. I think he says like a memory stirs
Say
inside
what you
me.
want to say.
And he's like, "Oh, I apologize." Yeah, he accuses him, and he's like, "I'm sorry. That's not my place." And it kind of shows you, even though he knows this is the guy, the society he lives in, he is below this guy. This is a rich guy. I cannot accuse a rich guy without like evidence. Whereas if it's a poor guy, just arrest him.
Right, or kill him, you know. But also the big turnaround for Jean Valjean is that so he accuses him anyways.
Oh
And
yes.
he puts out a letter accusing him, and to find out that Jean Valjean has already been caught and he's about to go on to trial. And instead of just like he could have just kept that to himself, but he goes to Jean and says, "Hey, there's this letter that says I accused you and I was wrong because the real Jean Valjean is being arrested or on trial right now. You should prosecute me." And then this happens like later on in the movie where he's like, "Hey, you have the perfect chance to either lock me up or kill me, and I am no longer a thorn in your side." Or, well, that's the only choice that he sees, right? But then Jean Valjean always takes the high road, basically.
Yep. So that's a little bit ahead. Going back to the lovely ladies, another banger. And I just had this thought. It's not a great thought to have, but I feel like if Fantine had just sort of realized what she was going to have to do from the get go, she probably could have gotten better money keeping her hair and teeth. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe not the teeth, but yeah.
Also, the second movie where Moulin Rouge is coming out of this, but a second movie where someone dies from consumption of too many dicks. You know what I mean? Oh, you made the joke in that. You get mad at me for making it here. Whatever.
Yeah, nah. As long as people understand that mine came first, it's okay.
Well, which is coming out first? Now you got a choice to make because
If they listen to both episodes, they'll know. They'll know. So yeah, the other Oscar buzz, or just the buzz around the movie turned into Oscar buzz later, is the Anne Hathaway
I dreamed a
song
dream.
and the
I dreamed a dream of time gone by.
that was beautiful. Just holding on her face the whole time, right?
So the director got some shit about all the close-ups, and he's like, "I shot it a ton of ways with a ton of different cameras, and like this looked the best to me, and that's what I went with." This is not a universally praised movie, which is just I find interesting. Like those people can suck it.
Hmm.
That's my critique of them.
That's good. That's good. It holds on her face throughout the entire song, and it's full of emotion. And like you said, it's filmed, it's recorded live, and all the emotion that you see on her face. I believe she won
She
Best
did.
Actress for this year at the Academy. Oh, supporting. That makes sense. And then the other close up that held on the person's face for the entire song was towards the end. Eddie Redmayne song when he goes back to the place where all his
Yeah, empty chairs.
empty chairs. That was just one shot on his face the entire song.
It's also really good. And like really like this it's harder to like the sad ones, although I mean Lovely Ladies isn't exactly, you know, a happy song, but you know the
Right. I think my favorite song, as far as like not crippling depressing, is the Innkeeper song.
master of the house, keeper of the keys. Yeah, it's great. That reminds me of a Seinfeld episode where George couldn't get that song out of his head and someone told him he was going to go insane, which made him like freak out that he was going to go insane because he couldn't stop singing the song to himself.
That song?
Yeah, master of the house, keeper of the keys. He just kept saying it over and over in his head.
That's
It's
funny.
catchy as shit.
It is catchy as shit. And Sacha Baron Cohen and Helena Bonham Carter, which it's funny because both of those actors have three names that they're known by. They play such, like, that's them, right? Like, not that's them, like how despicable it is, but those kind of characters, they're just so good at playing, especially Helena, because she always plays like, does she ever play a character that's like nice? I don't think so.
her so she does play I think the wife in the King's Speech, right? Am I getting that right? I don't know. She played, yeah, but her more memorable roles are where she's like a shitty person for sure.
100%. 100%.
She
And
just does it so well.
when we do Sweeney Todd, oh man.
Yeah, I know she's in it, and Sacha Baron Cohen. By the way,
Yeah,
the
that's true.
the alternate casting at the end of this is intense. There's a lot of names. I don't think there's anything for Helena, but there's some Sacha Baron Cohen. There's everyone else. So the next scene is where she attacks the guy that attacked her, and she's about to get arrested. Apparently, this is hilarious that you would be able to get this story, but Victor Hugo took that from a real life thing he saw. So he was going around walking. He was walking to like his editor, and he saw this take place. A woman, a prostitute, tell a guy to fuck off, and he like put snow in her, and then she hit him. So then the police come, but then at this time he was like a celebrity, so he's like, no, that didn't happen. She's in the and like got her off. Could you imagine you're this shitty person that does something to a prostitute, and then you're like, oh fuck, Victor Hugo just saw me, and like, now I like can't put her in jail like I want to.
It'd be funny if Victor Hugo is like, the police is like, so you saw what happened? And he goes, yes, I saw what happened. Like he sings his testimony.
He didn't sing. That the musical was written many years later.
I know.
It's just a book. Anyway, so he takes her to the hospital, and then Javert tells him about how he reported him, and he's like, I'm not going to press charges. Then he goes to the court, and then he goes to Fontaine, and she's like, I'm going to die, and I have a kid. Javert shows up, and he's like, I need 3 days. And the sword fight to him jumping into the water is pretty cool.
You like it?
And then we meet Cosette and Eponine.
And then I was aback. I was like, I was like, what a small world. Is that Valjean and Cosette ran away just to end up back in the same town as the innkeeper and Eponine?
Well, I mean, everyone just went to Paris, right? I think that's what happened. So they're just in the
Yeah,
big
but
city.
still though.
No, I agree. So we get the song, "The Master of the House." The beginning of that, where Sacha Baron Cohen says, the whore kind of looks at him. He's like, no, not tonight. Is just hilarious. And then
My favorite part of that whole thing is when Hugh Jackman goes to try to buy Cosette off of them. And he's like, no, we can't. We love Cosette.
I love that you see all the tricks they do to steal money, glasses, hats from people, and then they try and do it to Hugh Jackman, and he's just like swatting them away. Like, I know all this, and then he gives him the 1,500, and then Javert shows up and like, fuck, we could have gotten way more. Like, you idiot. And he's like, next time we sell a kid, I'll get all of it.
For that to play in as like everyone's selling themselves out or selling each other out, like when Javert pretends to be on the rebel side, on the rebellion side, and then is sold out by the kid, and then the innkeeper and his wife come back to try to like ruin Cosette's wedding.
Yeah.
But Eddie Redmayne is like, Rain Man, yeah.
Eddie Rain Man.
Eddie Rayman. It's just 1,236 toothpicks on the ground right there. No, he immediately knows who they are. I don't know how he immediately knows who they are, but that's never established. But he immediately knows who they are. And then the best part of the movie, like the best like comeuppets, I haven't used that word in a while. I think that's right. Comeuppets is where Sacha Baron Cohen is like, no, you want to learn the real dirty secret of Jean Valjean? Is I saw him in a sewer with a dead body of a boy. I even have this ring to prove it. And Eddie Redmayne is like, that's my fucking ring.
Yeah. So apparently in the book, the Sacha Baron Cohen character is the only one that gets like sort of a happy ending. He, I think, blackmails or gives information and gets money from Marius, and then he moves to the Caribbean and is a slave trader.
Oh,
Like
which is kind of what he tried to do, get money from Marius.
Yeah, so they escape to Paris. They just leave just before Javert gets there, and then they have to climb the walls to get around him. And then we get the Javert sings his song, which I think is good. And now we are in 1832,
His
and
song,
we
Who Am I?
Javert sings. I don't remember what it's called. Javert just sings a song. He gets like it's funny because the guy who doesn't seem to be like the most comfortable singing gets the most like he gets a ton of solos. Javert does.
Oh, Javert, and not Jean
Yeah.
Valjean. Yeah, yeah.
Jean Valjean. Yeah, no, Javert. So 1832, we get a look down again, but this time it's the beggars instead of the prisoners.
Yeah, I thought that was a good song.
And then the thick Cockney accent boy just out of nowhere.
Hello, mate. I live in this giant elephant.
My name's Gavroche. Yeah. I thought he was fine. It was definitely thick, but I liked him. And then we get basically a love triangle. Eponine loves Marius. Marius sees. I didn't realize until later that he's like, that's the first time I've ever seen Cosette, and
Yeah.
like, who is that? And then we get Sacha Baron Cohen. Then
You know what's
Javert shows
crazy
up.
is that Eponine, good looking. Also,
Yeah, there's no wrong choices there.
I mean,
Uh,
I'm not like not a fan of Amanda Seyfried, but like, I mean,
It sounds like you're conflicted here.
yeah, I would be. Eddie Redmayne is not conflicted. He knows what he wants. Also, I don't know if that's the guy I would go for, but I guess he's a kind of good looking guy.
Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah.
He's got a thing about him. I mean that Enrolas and Holras Andres, whatever his name is. That guy can get it.
Yeah.
So Marius then asks Eponine, I need you to find that woman, even though I love you. And then he tries to give her money, and she's like, I don't want your fucking money. And then we get
Every word he says cuts me deep.
but I think my next favorite song is Red, the Blood of Angry Men, Black.
something.
Yeah.
Something.
And then this is just him saying like, hey, your love doesn't matter. We got revolution to consider. This movie, or yeah, Les Mis the play, like is very much like Hamilton, right? Like the revolutionary aspects, the
Sure.
love aspects, like very like similar themes and content. So then the general that they were talking about earlier is dead. So they're like, all right, funeral day, our barricade will rise. Just basically like telling you what we're gonna do. And they just boys getting together to sing, right? Boys being boys. You gotta love it. It's just what it's like that. I wonder what he does when he's not with me. It's just like guys in a room singing.
Knowing like the reputation of this movie, I knew it was going to get really sad really fast, but I enjoyed these like lighthearted moments before like shit hits the fan with the rebellion. So like I enjoyed the red, dun 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 dun, black, and then this song too, right? It leads to, it's kind of intercut with them doing this, and then Eddie Redmayne's character being like heartsick about a Cosette, and then Hugh Jackman's character Jean Valjean is having like, I thought this was kind of weird. Wouldn't he want Cosette to like go off and marry a guy because it would get her away from basically life on the run?
Yeah, but he didn't know. Once he figured it out, he went and saved him, but he didn't know what she was doing.
Right, he got the letter, and at first when he read the letter, he was like, what the shit is this? I don't like this at all. My Cosette's going to be taken away from me. And then he sees Eddie Redmayne, and he's basically like, oh, okay, I can see it.
That'll do.
That'll do. I get it.
I mean, he
All
goes
right.
to get him. The song he sings is like, I have to go, if they love each other, I have to go save this kid. I have to go figure out,
Which is, I thought it was great. I thought it's great. I thought it parallels Javert when he like goes up to him. He's like, hey, I want to join your rebellion. And they're already distrusting of him because of what Javert did. And then he proves himself by shooting basically the snipers off the roof.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, you can be one of us. By the way, we have Javert back there and you can kill him.
Well, he
if you want.
asks. Yeah, he asks too.
Yeah, and they're like, "Sure."
So the Eponine song is very sad. It's right after she like takes him to see Cosette, and then her father shows up to like rob them or something, and she screams. And she sings this very sad song because she found the note for Marius from her. She's like, I love him, you know, what do I do? And just decides not to give him the letter right then
Right.
until
But
later when she's
instead
dying.
instead, not only does she not decide to give him the letter, she decides to do like a Mulan and fight in the rebellion as a guy. And I'm wondering, and you're the perfect person to ask because you like the movie, but you've also watched the play. You'd be a better person to ask if you read the book. But did some of these character developments happen a little too quickly in the movie?
Well, they have to. The book is very long. The play is very long. Like they have to, right? It's
You have to move it along. Yeah.
I mean, I think the idea that these two fall in love, Cosette and Marius, is a little. It's so quick, obviously, right?
Well, even to jump ahead a little bit, when he comes back and he sings the Empty Chair song, it's like he sings the song, and then the very next shot is Cosette helping him down the stairs, and they're in his grandfather's house. Like that. And it's like his recovery, Hugh Jackman saving him. Well, actually, now that I think about it, here's what's weird to me. At the end of the movie, it's revealed to him that Hugh Jackman saved his life, right?
Right.
And it's also revealed that he was Jean Valjean and he did something bad and he broke parole, but he didn't want to tell Cosette about it. But then she finds out at the end in that letter, right?
Sort of, yeah.
As a little kid for 9 years, she never wondered, why are we constantly on the run?
So there's a Liam Neeson version of this too that I watched forever ago,
Okay.
and I think she questioned it often in that movie, and he was just like, hey, I can't tell you, but this is the way it is. You know, we got to be safe or whatever, and she just sort of accepted it because he's this guy that has treated her extremely as a daughter when she was living in a really bad circumstance and her mom was dead. You know, it's like she kind of owes it to him. So there's also part of her that's like, I can't leave him for this guy. I think in that version too.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that makes a bit of sense. But yeah, it was just like it was just didn't make sense on like, well, haven't they been on the run this entire time? And am I to believe that she hasn't questioned it at all? Like she's like, hey, why are we constantly ducking the police?
yeah, I think she has to accept it. So we hit the funeral day. Do you hear the people sing? Maybe the most famous song from this, besides "I Dreamed a Dream" and
Um,
"I'm Jean Valjean."
who am I? I don't know.
I think this
Yeah,
is up there.
that's up
Javert
there.
hiding in the crowd, and then the shot goes off, and he goes to the barricade, and he's like, "I'll find out their plans." And this whole time, I'm like, "Why? How do none of you recognize this guy?" And then Gavroche is like, "Hey, hey, Inspector!" Like
I didn't recognize you there.
that's bad. Cockney
Yeah.
is pretty easy, and that was bad. And then they attack, and Eponine pulls the gun away from Marius. You didn't have to pull it into your chest. You could have pushed it anywhere. There was a lot of options
If
besides your
you
heart.
really love him, you pull it into your chest.
And then he threatens to blow the barricade, and they're like, "Oh fuck, let's get out of here." And he
Uh,
gives her the letter, and she
yep.
dies. And she dies in his arms, and then he moves on very quickly to like, "Oh, but Cosette's left. I'm so sad."
Well, he never felt like that towards her. Like it was more like a sister thing, and he was really sad about it. But I mean, he's not gonna fuck his sister.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I had to think of her like a sister. You know what I'm saying? I agree with your earlier point.
Yeah.
So then Jean Valjean gets the letter. Then he goes to the barricade. They think he's a spy, but he shoots some people, as you said, and then pretends to kill Javert. And he's like, "You're always a thief. You know, you're trying to get something from me." He's like, "You're wrong. You're always wrong. I'm just a man." And he's like, "No bargains. You're free." And then he says, "If I live, you know, this is where you find me." Like gives him the address, which I assume is that church that he ends up dying in. Like
I thought
that's
it was the flat that he was living with Cosette.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway,
I thought because it was a very specific street number with like an apartment number, and that doesn't seem like that's like a church address. Like, why wouldn't he just say like St. Paul's Cathedral? Why does it like, Masters Drive, unit number 2? It's weird.
so then, should I care if I die if Cosette leaves? And then Jean Valjean hears this. And he's like, bring him home. He's like a son I did not know. Bring him home. And then we get the battle scene. Little boy gets shot because they
Stupid for
need
him to go out
ammunition.
there,
And then they bring in the fucking cannons. They say
and then everyone dies.
don't throw your lives away, but in this world, it's either die or go to prison forever.
Right, or just like be under the rule of a mad king.
Yeah. I was reading about your country's history, how they this sparked a revolution like a decade later, but then a king came back and then they finally got rid of kings in the 1870s. Like it took three or four times for you guys to get it right.
Yeah, well, who was the king of France during this happening?
No idea. I read it earlier, but I didn't care.
Louis Philippe.
So Javert puts the medal on the little boy. They escape into the tunnels, as we talked about, runs into Sacha Baron Cohen. And then the scene with Javert where he says, if you take one more step, I'm going to kill you. And he just looks at him. He's like, you're going to have to do it because I'm moving. And he doesn't. Javert can't shoot him. And then Javert has this like crisis of faith. He's like, he gave me back my life, but in granting my life, this man has killed me.
Yep.
And then he just kills himself. He's like, I can't handle owing a debt to this guy that I think is a criminal. My whole life has been wrong if I like just allow this. So I'm just gonna thwap.
So I wanted to ask you earlier, if you had the chance to kill Javert in that alley with the rebels, would you have taken it?
It's interesting. I feel like you almost have to, right? I'm not the type of guy that's gonna sacrifice myself at the end for my kid. I wanna die comfortably in a bed. So it's like, yeah, I'll just kill him. I mean, he's not
I
a good
think if
person.
I think if I was Jean Valjean and it was more of like it's me or him,
It's me.
it, it I don't know if I'd be more sacrificial, but the fact that it's me, my daughter, or him, then it's him. Then it's no
Wait,
question.
I meant when I said it's me, I mean it's me who's living. The other option is to just not
It's
tell.
me.
Yeah, you really broke there. The other option is to just not tell them you'll kill him and let them deal with him. But then he would have escaped anyway because they weren't going to kill him before they all died. So I don't know. Maybe he would have gotten shot with cannon fire. So the young lovers get together, and then he tells Marius about his past, but he's like, "Don't tell Cosette," because it's like, man, women wouldn't understand this sort of thing. Like, they just got to keep it from their feeble minds. And he already talked about Sacha Baron Cohen showing up at the wedding. The hair and makeup won an Academy Award for this, but I don't know why they wanted Hugh Jackman to look like Martin Van Buren at the end of this movie.
I did wonder how Javert did not recognize him when he first saw him as mayor. But then I thought, like, what he looked like as a slave with, like, shaved head, scars all over his body, long beard. I'm like, you know what? To be fair, 8 years later, I don't think I would have also recognized him. But then another 9 years later after that, actually, do we know how many years after he saves Eddie Redmayne to when he dies? Was that like, I mean, Cosette
Could
didn't age, so it was just like a year or something, right?
could have been way less than that. Who knows? Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was
Did he
like a
have like
day. It was like a day.
syphilis?
I
Like, why
don't
did he
know.
get so bad so fast?
I think it's one of those things that's like, so this happens to a lot of people. Like your reason, like older people that are like in a profession that they just keep doing into their like 80s, and then they quit and they deteriorate very quickly because their reason for living is just gone. Like his reason for living was protecting Cosette. He accomplished his task, which is why we see Fantine at the very end,
Yeah.
because she's now with this rich guy, Marius. So it's just like he can just let himself go now. He did what he was supposed to do. So I think
I
that's
love
kind
how
of part of it.
he runs away like on their wedding day, and but I guess it's because he doesn't know that Jalvert's dead. So
Yeah,
he just thinks he's gonna always be chased.
I guess that's got to be part of it. I
Yeah.
Every time I expect him to be like, "Hey, Javert's dead." He's like, "Oh," throws off his cloak and gets up. He's like, "All right, let's go."
So, like I said, this movie, I was standing pretty strong. Didn't cry at the Anne Hathaway. Didn't even cry at the Eponine. And then Hugh Jackman's dying. They realize that he's the one that saved them and that he did all this for them. And then he's dying. Anne Hathaway comes back to like lead him to heaven. And I'm still not crying. And then it shows everyone who's dead like in the barricade of like the revival of the rebellion, like the French spirit is still alive. And that's when I broke. That's when I was just like, fuck. And yeah, a couple tears escaped from my body. And I did, it did feel kind of like a coming to God experience. I just felt like a very strong movement. I was just like, wow, this is about to end, because obviously it's about to end. And this is just really fucking good.
It is, yeah. It's I don't know. Like it every time. I think just the fact of how great the music is, it really elevates it for me.
I was thinking about like being an old person, or you know how you like, have you ever watched a movie with a person who just asks way too many questions and that just doesn't get like symbology of a movie? They just like look at a movie like kind of like just very flat on the screen.
Yeah.
I just was thinking like, if I'm watching a movie, this movie with a person like that, they're like, well, how did these people, how are they back? How, I thought they died.
Did you watch this movie with your parents?
No. Why are they here now? And my if I watched this movie with my dad, he'd be like, why are they all speaking English? I thought this took place in France.
Your dad would be like, "The French Revolution is the worst thing that ever happened to that country." when when kings were ruling.
No, I think actually I was actually surprised that it was totally believable to me that Jalvert was like on the rebellion side, because one, some time has passed. I was like, oh, maybe he's like seen the light, or maybe this administration isn't like the one he like followed right into.
Yeah.
And the French people now, like you speak to any French people now, they were all for rebellion. I think they still are, honestly.
So the only fun fact left before alternate casting is the set for Diagon Alley from the first Harry Potter movie was remodeled and used for the barricade scene.
That's cool.
So the following people were considered for Fontaine before Anne Hathaway, or before she got it: Amy Adams, Jessica Biel, Marion Cotillard, Kate Winslet, Emily Blunt, and Rebecca Hall. Although Emily Blunt had read didn't even audition, so I don't know how she could have been. Maybe she was considered and she refused to audition. I don't know. Paul Bettany was considered for Javert before Russell Crowe, and then Samantha Barks, as we said, was the Eponine in the West End production. Apparently, Miley Cyrus also auditioned for the role. Hayden Panettiere, Scarlett Johansson, Leah Michele, Emily Browning, Lucy Hale, Evan Rachel Wood auditioned, and it was rumored Taylor Swift was offered the role, but she had to settle for being in the movie Cats. So
Well,
Cats was directed by the same guy.
really?
How? How? I don't know.
Have you seen Cats?
No, I mean I've seen the cat anuses in the videos. Yeah, no, I don't know.
And Dame Julie Dench. Have you heard that James Corden interview where he, something along the lines of like, and then Dame Judy Dench is just a giant pussy.
I think I have. So, for the role of Cosette, Emma Watson, Shailene Woodley. Apparently, Shailene Woodley was pretty close. Miranda Cosgrove. I don't know who that is. Lily Reinhart, Portia Doubleday, and Daniel Hope. I don't know who that is either. For the Sacha Baron Cohen part, Rowan Atkinson, Billy Crystal, Ricky Gervais, Steve Martin, and Robin Williams. Even above Robin Williams, I think Sacha Baron Cohen is actually pretty perfect for this part. Like, obviously, Robin Williams would have worked, but the griminess of Sacha Baron Cohen in this is, I think, perfect for the part.
Well, also, like, I feel like bits of his acting where he grabs something off of someone or he like says something under his breath, I could just totally imagine it's Sasha just adding it as they go.
Yeah. Well, apparently he this is obviously part of the script, but he pisses in the bottle at the beginning and then later on grabs that same bottle to drink from.
Yeah.
So, and this last one is these are all people that at one point in time were considered for Jean Valjean, but this is during I guess this movie was in production hell, which this movie could have been made at any time, right? But someone bought the rights to it and whatever. Warren Beatty, Tom Cruise, Robert De Niro, Michael Douglas, Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, Gene Hackman, Tom Hanks, Dustin Hoffman, William Hurt, Kevin Kline, Jack Nicholson, Al Pacino, Robert Redford, and Christopher Walken. I don't know if any of those people can sing. So that must have been the versions
All right.
without the
There's
singing.
There's an impression for you. Who am I? Christopher Walken, go.
Who am I? Jean Valjean. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And I'm Alain Valon. And I've finally watched Les Misérables.